Welcome everybody to the Ecocivilisation South African Wing. This is our third webinar. And today we are very, very excited to have our wonderful guest speaker, Anna Shevel from the Good Food Network. We're very excited to be speaking to her today and learning all about food sovereignty. So thank you so much for joining us live, and also thank you so much for everybody listening to this at another time that's just convenient to you. I know a lot of people wanted to join today, but it being December and lots of busyness and celebration happening, people will be joining us in the playback. So welcome to you as well. Yes, so just a little introduction from my side. My name is Eleftheria. The name is from Hellenic descent, and it means liberty or freedom. And that's essentially what I stand for, is the liberation of the sacred feminine within us all. I'm really passionate about regenerative living and living in harmony with nature. And so this has brought me to Ecocivilisation, and I'm really honored to be elected as the country chair for South Africa and the movement here. So welcome. Also wanted to just briefly introduce our curator, which is 𝘰𝘩𝘢𝘷𝘦. She's the lady that really brought this concept of eco-civilization together, but is also building this incredible community. So please join us in the community if this is something that you are passionate about, or you feel that you would like to contribute to or get more involved in. Over the last 2 years, we've been building this amazing, like-hearted, beautiful community that have the same vision, and that is for us to co-create a regenerative future for our civilization. And so without further ado, I would love to introduce you to our guest speaker today. I love this quote by her, which says, "We have more power to change the world and achieve vital, robust health from our forks than any other means available to us." So Anna is a social entrepreneur, a food activist, and a wellness practitioner, and 100% committed to changing the food system. Anna started her career 20 years ago in TV commercial production, and then went on to graduate as a product designer. And it was in these early career choices that highlighted the wastefulness of the mass consumption machine, selling lies that fuel extractionism, exploitation, and environmental degradation to sell toxic products destined for the trash heap to people who don't need them and get into debt buying them. Anna then committed to be part of the solution and instead of part of the problem, and became the education manager at a sustainability consultancy developing training for corporates and green-collar jobs. In 2013, Anna shifted her focus to the food system, where she saw the most impact could be achieved, and started the City of Eden, a project focused on growing edible, ecological, and equitable cities, where she activated urban growing projects that grew food in public spaces and connected people to the source of their food. That is so important for us to know where our food comes from. In 2014, she became very ill with a combination of autoimmune diseases and hormonal imbalances. And rejecting lifelong chronic medication, which is what was prescribed to her by doctors, she sought to heal herself and discovered the role of food in our health. She was also then horrified to discover how contaminated our food system is, and seeking non-toxic food to heal highlighted how difficult it was to find and buy chemical and hormone-free naturally grown food. This sparked her journey into wellness, and she started the country's most comprehensive good food geolocatable directory and marketplace for organic, local, ethical food in South Africa. Good Food Network is committed to accelerating the growth of the good food sector until it replaces the current broken and toxic industrial food system. Anna, it is a great pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you for that introduction, Eleftheria. It's wonderful to be joining you in the Ecocivilisation community.
Thank you so much. It's just your story in itself is just so powerful and inspiring. And, it sounds like this incredible hero's journey and heroine's journey. And it takes this moment of, sometimes our health brings us to this point where we see what is kind of broken and toxic in the world. And it kind of then, I'm just really inspired by how you took that and created this life purpose and life mission from that. And on behalf of all of us that really are seeking to eat organic and healthy food and struggle to find it, I just really want to thank you for taking up that call, answering that call, and actually creating this incredible food network. So in our talk today, normally our format is just looking at the vision. What is our vision for eco-civilization? And today's topic is the sovereignty of the food system in eco-civilization. And I want to invite you in to just imagine what it would be like for us all to just access very easily food that is sovereign. And perhaps just in a few words, Anna, could you maybe just describe a vision of that end goal that you have in place of replacing a broken, toxic industrial system with a good food sector? What would it look like?
Sure. Firstly, for me, there are toxic chemicals in our food system that just need to go. They're a class of toxic chemicals called highly hazardous pesticides, and they are acutely toxic. And we have, in South Africa, we have over 135 of those in our food system legally. So those need to go. But what a non-toxic decentralized food system looks like for me is local hubs, food being produced locally, local hubs, shortened supply chains, relationships between the farmer and the consumer, the movement growing of people growing their food at home. That's really important across the world, but in South Africa, we really need to, and I'll talk later, we really need to support entrepreneurs. So it's a balance between what we can do ourselves and how much money we can put back into our economies. But reducing travel miles, the most important thing is revitalizing our soil. So really, really investing in building our soil. With that, builds the microbial life. And if we are focused on healthy soil and food with healthy microbes, the healthiest food to eat is whole food that hasn't traveled very far, that is full of vitality. And there's so many benefits that come with that. Just to illustrate the picture better, I would say that it is hubs of local producers or co-ops or farmers markets that can sell more directly to very localized communities as much as possible.
Wonderful. I think there's a part of me that really just wants to have access and shop like my grandmother used to, where you take your bag and there's no wrapping and there's no plastic covering and there's zero waste, and the person who grew the food. If you're not growing some of it yourself, maybe you're trading with somebody, and that's the way that you're connected to your food in the community, and knowing that the soil's being taken care of. It encompasses everything, but we're going to get into that.
I just want to comment on that. So I think one of the biggest threats, one of the biggest threats to culture, to everything good in society is convenience. So
Yes.
With convenience, we have traded out so many of the things that make us human and contribute to our wellness and contribute to our societies and our culture. We do everything from our computer screen now. And yes, it comes at a really big cost to our health, to our mental health, to our environment, and our supply chains.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I mean, that's so incredibly true, is that convenience. And I think convenience only has a place when our lives are so busy that we don't have time or capacity to actually maybe grow some of our own food, and the incredible, health benefits, psychological and mental and physical benefits that comes from that. But yes, I often find people that are stuck there. They would like to grow their own food or support somebody local, but they don't have the time. And so it's really creating a culture where we make space for that time, because it's so incredibly important.
There's another comment that I'd just like to make. Sorry.
Yes.
You spoke about health and my journey just being inspiring. I think you'll hear a lot of people that are in the food sector now, makers or growers, have had a very similar story to myself, where there's been an awakening and understanding what the food system is doing to themselves or the world. So yes, I feel that the epidemics of disease are spurring a reconnection. But the other comment that I'd like to make about that is, when we have disease or ill health, the way that Western society looks at that is something has gone wrong with our body, and it's a symptom of something that's gone wrong, and we just need to throw medication, and we need to mask the symptom, and we just need to deal with the symptom. But what I learned on my journey is that every ailment that expresses itself in my body, or the disease that manifests, is a feedback mechanism from my body trying to talk to me and trying to say, hey, there's something that you're doing that's not working for me and is causing this problem. Would you re-examine what's going on and change it? So that for me has been the root of my wellness journey. And subsequently, I have a very far out conviction. So it's beyond a belief. It's a conviction that we are able to reverse almost every single disease or ailment that we suffer from if we address the root cause in our lifestyle, mental, spiritual, and physical health.
Powerful, very, very powerful statement and conviction. And I certainly have seen that in some of my clients I've worked with who've been diagnosed with cancer. It's a powerful, incredible journey to witness the power that we have to heal ourselves. So medicine, is food, but we also have the old ancient saying of physician, heal thyself, which our ancestors left us to. So yes, absolutely. I hear that fully.
Yeah.
So,
but it's just not a good profit, if we all know how to heal ourselves and can listen to the root cause, it's not a good profit model.
No. To bring us to our next part, we normally look at the current reality, and that is where we really face the truth. And the truth can be painful, but if we don't actually face that truth, we don't use that pain to step into power, to take action. And our next part is normally really looking at what action steps can we take today. And I know that Anna has prepared a wonderful presentation for us that's going to take us from current reality, really facing what's happening, and giving us some action steps. And so, Anna, I'm going to hand over to you now, and really looking forward to your presentation.
Great. Let's just see if it works in a format that I'm new to. So there we go. Just moving little things out the way so that I can see. Okie dokie. So thank you. As Eleftheria introduced me, I'm Anna Shevel, and I'm the founder of the Good Food Network, South Africa's organic, local, ethical food online ecosystem. So did you know that with every bite we eat, we are eating stardust? Every molecule that makes up our bodies comes from the nutrients in our food and is traceable to the centers of stars that exploded life into the galaxy. So we are in the universe, and the universe is in us. So we are made of star dust, but we are also made of trillions of microorganisms that we host in, on, and around us. More than half of the DNA in our bodies belongs to foreign, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and yeasts that help us to digest our foods, produce our vitamins. They assist with our immune response, and they affect our metabolism and our brain chemistry and our moods. But where do they come from? They come from our mother's birth canals, if we've had a natural birth, or the external world around us, everything we touch, taste, feel, even the air that we breathe. But importantly, they come from our food. So our food is made of stardust, and our food is made of healthy living microorganisms, if we're lucky, and it all comes from the soil. The soil is a life-giving miracle beneath our feet. There are more living organisms in one handful of soil than there are people on Earth, and we rely on our soil to produce 95% of the food that we eat. But we take it for granted. We poison it, we strip it, we deplete it, and we kill it in a process called industrial agriculture. So I'd like to ask you, how many of you would sit down to a dinner with a mass murderer, knowing that you're next on the hit list? Or the evil chemist that contributed to the making of the atomic bomb, or the Holocaust, or World War II, or Agent Orange that killed millions in Vietnam and left a legacy of birth defects, deformity, and disease to this day? Well, I hate to say it, but actually, with every meal, it's most likely that we do. So the same companies that made the nitrogen bombs make the chemical fertilizers that go on our food. The same plants that make explosives are the plants that make our agrochemicals. Agent Orange was a herbicide that was sprayed onto Vietnam's villages and crops and jungles, exterminating many people. Zyklon B of the Holocaust was also used as a pesticide. And these are just some of the many chemicals in our food system that are actually have origins in warfare. So here are more chemicals from Monsanto's lethal list. Monsanto was acquired. Please look these up. PCBs, DDTs, TNT, synthetic bovine growth hormones, aspartame, terminator crops, etc. And these are all linked to things like diabetes, MS, lupus, epilepsy, Parkinson's, tumors, fibromyalgia, and Alzheimer's. So what's really exciting is in, I think, 2019, the world's biggest food company was bought by the world's the world's baddest food company was bought by the world's biggest pharmaceutical company. So the food that makes us sick and the drugs that keep us sick and dependent on chronic medication is a match made in hell. These that you can see here are some of our most toxic foods in our food system, most health hazardous, and they can be found as ingredients in almost all processed foods. And then that food gets processed by these guys who collectively own most of the global food monopoly. And they add colorants and flavorants and sweeteners and bulking agents and emulsifiers. And they take the food and they strip it and they process it and they nuke it until it's almost just addictive empty calories and no longer really food, deficient of nutrients, enzymes, and vital life force. So it's no wonder that we are living in an era of lifestyle disease epidemics. How many of the people that are in this audience, or how many of the people watching, know somebody that has one of the conditions on this list? Diabetes, cancer, allergies, intolerances, Alzheimer's, hormonal imbalances. So I myself have actually had 4 of these on the list, and through a very long, hard journey, I have eaten my way back to vital health. And at the age of 41, I am the healthiest I have ever been in my life. So I'd just like to show, in South Africa, we are a nation that is top of the list for many things, and most of the things that we're top of the list for are not things to be very proud of. We have a very high rate of lifestyle diseases, as you can see, our number one killers are high blood pressure, number one, diabetes, number three, and you can see that list. Then for our nutrition stats, we have 25% of women overweight, 40% of women are obese, yet 27% of children are stunted. And 23% of children aged between 6 and 23 months meet the criteria for a minimum acceptable diet. So we're really not getting the nutrition that we need, especially in a very poor or very divided economic country like South Africa. And one of the problems this picture sums up so beautifully with our health system is how food, the economics of food. It's much easier to eat trash, processed trash food that is nutrient deficient than it is to eat healthy, vital food that is good for us. Here is another picture that is really relevant to South Africa. In South Africa, 80 to 90% of our maize is genetically modified. And we are the only country in the world where our staple diet is a genetically modified food. So what happens with the genetically modified foods mostly is that they get sold with chemicals that go specifically with that type of patented seed. And so with our maize being genetically modified, the maize that is consumed is sprayed, is very, very highly sprayed. And South Africa is also a country where our legislation is outdated. It was written in 1947, so that's legislation from the time of World War II that is still regulating our agrochemical industry. And if you think of how advanced the agrochemical industry is, we're talking about nanotechnology now and all kinds of futuristic things, a really multi-billion-dollar industry. So they get through all kinds of loopholes, and developing countries are also really easy to target and export chemicals to that the rest of the world bans. So what's tragic in South Africa as well is that a lot of the countries in the EU and the West that produce agrochemicals have banned chemicals that they themselves export to South Africa that we legally use on our food. And to add insult to injury, all of the food that we export has very high standards that it needs to pass, and the food gets tested for the residue levels that is left behind. But in our local market, the government capacity has deteriorated through corruption and through lack of resources and lack of regulation and monitoring. The food in our local markets is not tested before it goes out for consumption. So that is quite scary. South Africa's food system is in a far worse state than the rest of the world, but the rest of the world is very similar, but not as bad. I found this article just before our chat talking about a commonly used pesticide linked to the global obesity epidemic. And it says that lifestyle changes around diet and exercise rarely lead to sustained weight loss. We think that part of the problem may be this intrinsic dialing back of the metabolic furnace by a chemical called chlorpyrifos. Now, chlorpyrifos, I think, is banned in the EU and Canada, but in South Africa, it is still widely used on our crops. I also found another quote from 2020. Now, this is also focused on South Africa. And as you know, I was just talking about chronic and lifestyle disease. And because South Africa is such a poor country, we have, or our poor is the majority. We've just hit a 44% unemployment rate in South Africa. We're the highest unemployment rate in the world. And unlike Europe, we don't have social services, and the social grants don't look after our people. So when people lose their jobs, and become destitute and are forced into poverty and starvation, there's no support, or very, very little support. The support that they get is not enough to feed a family for a week, let alone a month. So this slide focuses on South Africa, talking about our youth who are poor. And as I've spoken about, our staple diet is highly toxic, genetically modified maize. And over the past 10 years, the proportion of young people in South Africa with one or more chronic disease has more than doubled, from 2.5% in 2011 to 5.1% in 2020. Asthma and allergies, our youth are potentially more affected by asthma and allergy-related conditions, which make up 49% of all youth chronic registrations in 2020. So you can see that these have increased by 87%, which is a really scary thing to think about when these are the people that need to be leading and running our country and need to be the entrepreneurs that are revitalizing our economy and our workforce. So it's not only the health impacts. Our food system is devastating to the environment. Over 70% of our water use is attributed to agriculture, 70% of deforestation, a third of our carbon emissions. I think 30 to 40% of all food produced globally is wasted. And this is leading to ecosystem collapse. And it's no mystery what has happened to our bees. Our bee loss and the declining bee populations is linked to compounds in our pesticides. So I know that it is all very hopeless and depressing, but we can actually save ourselves and our planet from our forks. Eating can still be a spiritual and cosmic act that connects us to the natural wonder of the world in harmony. And we can save our lives and our planet and our planets from our forks. We can invest in local entrepreneurs. We can sequester carbon emissions. We can reduce drought and floods. We can plant the rain. We can empower women. We can defend animal rights. We can reduce our medical bills, and we can invest in fair wages and fair labor practices only by choosing what it is that we eat and who it comes from and how it was made. So I'm not sure if you guys know of Ron Finley. He's a really cool guy in LA. He's called the Gangster Gardener, and he's famous for a quote and many other things. The quote says that growing your own food is like printing your own money. And that's a really, really important consideration. And I love the fact that urban farming is spreading all over the world. But in South Africa, that I've spoken about, investing in local entrepreneurs is actually the most impactful and patriotic thing that we can do to build back better. After 10 years of state capture, corruption, lockdown, and that was all preceded by the legacy of apartheid, investing in local entrepreneurs is the most impactful thing that we can do. So there's no better type of entrepreneur to invest in than those whose businesses have a triple bottom line of impact: social, environmental, and economic. This is a really lovely example. So if we buy our food from township or rural mamas that take tiny patches of lifeless dust and start producing food, increasing the microbial quality, not using any chemicals, and we buy directly from them in box schemes, or they supply a local food store, we shorten the supply chain radically. We invest more money into a local economy. We know that many households in South Africa are women-led households, single mother households, and we can really, really revitalize our economy by supporting these women farmers and small-scale farmers, and revitalizing our immune systems and our health. So here's just a picture of the kind of food system that is being pushed all over the world. The top picture is being pushed right now. So in South Africa, one of the challenges that we face is CropLife is an organization, it's an NGO but it is made up of all the biggest biotech and agrochemical companies, Bayer, Monsanto, Syngenta, etc. And they are actually the government is outsourcing vital functions that the government should be overseeing independently, like chemical registration is being outsourced to CropLife. Now that's the industry regulating the industry. CropLife also houses South Africa's list of agri-chemicals, and you can't go onto the CropLife the 𝘰𝘩𝘅𝑚𝑒𝕐 website and look up the agri-chemicals that are being sprayed. There's no access to information. And this is just a symptom of now what is threatening the rest of the world, because the UN wants to form an official alliance with CropLife. So if you just think about that, you've got this agri-chemical body that represents the biggest multinational corporates that sell genetically modified seed and that sell agri-chemicals. That's their business model. And now the UN wants to use them as a partner. So it's a great conflict of interests, and it's more of a promotion of agribusiness than it is a promotion of agriculture. So the picture below is regenerative agriculture that uses holistic land management, and it facilitates nature's rehabilitation rather than the above picture, which dominates and controls and has these inputs and is just a monoculture. Here is another beautiful picture of the same concept. We've got regenerative agricultural ecosystems. You can see the little hens, they're called chicken tractors, where the hens are actually rotated and moved through fields so that they can eat the pests off all of the plants, and also produce manure that fertilizes the soil. We've got a beautiful picture of permaculture below. And there's another point that I want to bring up with this picture, is that animal agriculture is also slated as being bad for the environment. And yes, that is true. Industrial agriculture and factory farms are absolutely terrible and diabolical for our health, for animal rights, and for the environment. But the most beneficial agricultural practice for our planet is regenerative agriculture, and that relies on livestock, integrated livestock with agriculture to form closed systems, closed farming systems, where you've got the inputs going into the soil, and the animals actually provide incredible functions in agriculture, and they increase carbon sequestration. In a regenerative farm, carbon sequestration is up to 10 tons per hectare, which is just one of the most stunning carbon sequestration mechanisms that we have. It's a technique called drawdown. And you guys can look it up. So with every bite that we take, we can choose to destroy the planet and to poison ourselves and our families, or we can choose to regenerate our ecosystems and invest in ourselves and be in harmony again. Which brings me to the Good Food Network, the solution that I was inspired to create, which is why Eleftheria's invited me on. It's an online platform that helps people connect to their local producers. You can buy local and eat organic, and it's a geolocatable platform. Basically what you can do on Good Food Network, it's a directory where you can find everything that you are looking for in the good food ecosystem, from restaurants to farms. You can buy directly from them, so they are able to have their own store on Good Food Network, and they're able to sell direct to customers. And we also provide a fundraising mechanism so that food system projects can raise capital, because in South Africa, there is absolutely no support for organic or regenerative farmers. The government will only support farmers that opt in for chemicals and patented seed. So here's a little picture also of the interface. You can see that each business can have its own page or its own storefront. And those are all the different types on the left-hand side. Those are all the different types of businesses on Good Food Network. How it works for business to end user is that the end user can find directly any type of business, a food market, a delivery box, a grocery store, training course, a restaurant. For businesses, they can connect B2B. So a little store can find all of its suppliers, and the suppliers can find somewhere to sell. One of my favorite stores on Good Food Network was an Indigenous food store. I'm not going to go too much into Indigenous foods, but one of the best things that we can invest in food system transformation is revitalizing cultural and heritage foods and bring back food species diversity. There are incredible health benefits. The foods that grow locally are superfoods. They're just not studied and they're not promoted. So I think in supermarkets around the world, just due to the supply chain convenience, I think we only have about 40 different food species that are available in most supermarkets around the world. But we have thousands and thousands of food species that could be in our food systems. And what's beautiful about these species as well is that they have grown specifically adapted to the environment that they grow in. So all of these foreign foods that are difficult to farm, that require pesticides and lots of water and irrigation and all of these kinds of things are very, very expensive. But if we look at what grows locally, we could reduce all of those impacts. In fact, for these foods that grow locally in the Western Cape, we don't need any of those impacts. They're drought resistant, they don't need watering, and they're highly nutritious. Here's just a little picture of the fundraising that we do on Good Food Network, and there's a regenerative model, which I won't go too deeply into. But just what I really passionately want to get across is the last thing that we need in South Africa, where we have a 44% unemployment rate, where we have so much illness, lifestyle disease, where we are so sensitive to climate change, to drought, and ecosystem collapse. We don't need smart agriculture where thousands of hectares are managed by one guy on a drone and his tablet. We need people working. We need custodians of the earth. We need ancestral knowledge and wisdom handed down to generations. And to me, this is what a beautiful food system looks like. Small entrepreneurs selling directly to their customers, and people that take responsibility for their inputs and feel a connection to the environment and the natural systems that help us, that support our health and our livelihoods. So thank you very much. That's the end of my talk, and that's the website. That was very long.
No, I mean, I could have carried on listening to you forever. It's it's very sobering to hear what is actually happening in South Africa and the connection with Europe, and looking at the finances of all of it. So really what I'm hearing you say is that food sovereignty and the choices that we make in terms of our food really affect everything. So
yeah, just because you're bringing up the economics of it, something that is really devastating at the moment in South Africa and probably in other places around the world due to lockdown, and to me, the irrational system of lockdown that has destroyed much, much more than what it has saved. So with so many industries going bankrupt and so many people being put out of work, etc., it's provided an opportunity for a lot of the global monopoly companies, the massive companies, to come in and buy our local businesses. And so with every product that we sell, with every calorie we produce. So for instance, okay, that was companies buying our businesses, so foreign companies owning our local industries. But if you consider that if we rely on Western and European agri-tech companies to provide our seed and the chemicals, every single calorie we produce is taking profit out of the country. Every single calorie we produce is paying out of the country. And every single calorie we produce should go to investing in our local economy, our local entrepreneurs, and our health. So just as an economic wake-up call.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, I mean, it speaks for itself, that statement, every calorie. Another thing that I really loved what you were saying in the cultural and heritage foods, that slide that you just showed us. I think it is, so incredibly important. And I've spent some time in South Africa with a lot of locals. And I know there are a few people that are, rewriting books and getting, some sun wisdom and some local traditional wisdom from all of the perennial plants that are kind of, natural to each environment. And I think it's so important for us to hold on to that wisdom and to make sure that the next 7 generations know that wisdom. And as you said, what I loved hearing you say was, we have our own superfood. And so for me, some of the reason I stopped eating some superfoods that are imported is I just started weighing up the cost of the carbon footprint of that superfood. And I tried to start looking for, where is my local superfood? And Barry, my partner, always says to me, here's the gooseberry that I'm growing in the garden. That's a superfood.
And the nasturtium seed.
And the nasturtiums, yes, that's your capers. And it's kind of like all around you. But it's about us, I think, I don't know, I like the term rewilding, but it's also re-educating ourselves and reclaiming all of these amazing food sources that we have, that we can grow, that we can forage, that we can, find in natural environment around us. Yes, so I don't know if there's anything more that you'd want to add to that.
I think a thought that I just had was how much marketing plays a role in shaping us. And, corporates often say, well, we're just giving the people what they want. But actually, if you've worked in the marketing industry, which I have, and if you've worked in advertising, there are millions of dollars or rands spent in boardrooms, which people spend hours thinking about, right, how do we create a market? How do we convince people that this is what they need and that is bad for them, or their life could be better? And I think we really need to just pay attention to how much of our beliefs or how much of our habits are marketing narratives. And we need to rewrite them, not just for our health, but we need to rewrite those narratives for the next 7 generations, as you say. And sorry to keep going on, but more of these narratives that are bombarding us are just what's happening with tech and our reliance on screens and the internet and social media. And there are incredible innovations coming out, and there's AI and virtual reality and all of these kinds of things. And I think that we just really need to be very conscious and aware of how much of our humanity, how much of being human we give up for these innovations. Because I watched an excellent documentary that I would really love spread far and wide. It's called Childhood 2.0. And it's a documentary comparing childhood today to childhood of our parents and our grandparents' generations. And just the loss of, we've lost so much. We've lost so much humanity through the internet and our smartphones. And those tools that are meant to be tools are actually using us. So we're becoming the product. And yeah, and it ties, sorry, I see I just blacked out there. It all ties into food as well, because it's everything that we consume. We are what we eat. So we need to be really mindful of, and that was my wellness journey as well. My wellness journey was not just a food wellness journey. It was a thought and a mind and a spirit wellness journey, what we consume or what consumes us.
Yes, the holistic approach, right? So consumption also, maybe also for in terms of what we consume through technology. Yes, that last slide as well, where you just went into smart farming. We recently, with Ecocivilization, Violetta's, here with us, we had a fantastic talk on smart villages, and I loved this. One of our country chairs was talking about what the concept of smart village means to her, and I loved what she said. She said, "Smart means wise." And so what the collective kind of thought in the smart village is that we use responsible technology. So as you're using technology with a Good Food Network, where you're connecting people locally to sales, I think that is a way in which it can contribute, but not contaminate. But I love that, a wise way of us actually setting this up. Yeah, so I think it's responsible technology rather than, and there's a different system, I think, for South Africa in terms of smart farming, because we have the 44%, unemployment rate. Like we cannot automate farming in this country. We can't. It's not going to be viable.
I also, Zach Bush talks about how when people start connecting to their health and their food, they actually start connecting to their life purpose as well. And I definitely experienced that. So from my journey, one of the things that I do is I'm a big dreams coach, a big dream manifesting coach. And part of my health journey unlocked the importance of fulfilling your passion, etc. So something that I just want to flag as to be mindful of: if we outsource too much to technology, we risk disconnecting ourselves from our life, from the connection back again to our passion and life purpose. And it's just something to raise. Smart cities, I would also I'm a little bit skeptical of smart cities, not to counter, because I didn't experience your talk, but I'm really a fan of independence, sovereignty, not being monitored, not being controlled, not being dictated to, etc., and surveillance and a grid and all of those kinds of things worry me just a little bit when I see what's happening in the world. So I think as long as there's an awareness of not creating homogenous households and homogenization.
Absolutely. I also wanted you to share, we were talking also about, during this lockdown and the incredible impact it had on a country like South Africa, and I think a lot of third world countries, really had the same kind of impact with it. But I wanted to really share this amazing thing that you did, that you collaborated with some wonderful people and you created this event. And would you share that with us? Because that's also really inspiring.
Thanks. Sure. So when I heard that lockdown was coming, I was actually due to go overseas to go ski and dance. And that was the 14th of March. When I heard that we were going to have a lockdown, I immediately understood what that would do for our economy, with people who live paycheck to paycheck, and locking down a country that is already mostly on the breadline. And if people can't go to work and there's no support for them, and we've already got a third of the country, going to bed without food, I got really alarmed, and I got into an obsessed panic. And I started a project called One Love SA, and I created a platform. Within a week, I'd attracted 11 volunteers, and I'd created an online platform that mapped all of the all the NGOs across the country, so that people would be able to help volunteer and support, and I could match care with need across South Africa. And we got very busy with trying to connect volunteers, but then I realized that the most important need was going to be food aid, because people were going to not be able to buy food. So I then became obsessed with helping to fundraise for emergency food aid. In our first week, we collected 100,000 Rand. And over that month, we were just in a frenzy of fundraising, and something quite incredible just seemed to happen. Somebody had an idea to have a virtual rock concert with all of South Africa's top musicians, and we had the first live stream event of 11 of South Africa's best, most loved artists who performed the One Love benefit concert. And during the month of April, we raised 400,000 Rand, and we threw this incredible live stream event. And it wasn't just live stream. Everybody that was participating on Zoom could actually participate in the concert as well. So that was really cool.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. You know, it's also just so inspiring to hear that it's possible, you know, when you maybe are this passionate about something and we can collaborate, there's so much that we can do together, you know, for the greater good of all. If we have a collective vision and we can help one another, that's incredible. And also, you, with this Good Food Network, I mean, I remember when I met you like a good, 7-8 years ago, you were doing a permaculture course. You came to stay at our permaculture retreat place. And there was a kind of a whisper that you shared with me about the Good Food Network. Back then, it was a little tiny embryo. It hadn't even seen light of day yet. And here you are. And you have self-funded this project and the network for years and years and years. And I know what that's like as an entrepreneur, to believe in it, put in everything you have in it. And then just recently, you received an amazing gift of an investor that is now invested in this. And that's such beautiful and wonderful news, because this really needs to become kind of like a standard, you know, everywhere, I think. And we wish you for it to keep growing. But maybe you could share just a little bit of how it will expand, or anything that you'd like to share around that.
Thanks, Eleftheria. So yeah, one of the really amazing, so I was really busy in 2020. So the year of lockdown and COVID was probably one of my most creative, innovative years. Not only with the One Love project, I did that for 2 months, but then I realized that I was going to burn out. And obviously, if your bowl is empty and you're doing charity, then you'll never have anything to give. So I had to go back to Good Food Network and concentrate on Good Food Network again, because my vision for food system transformation, you know, is one that I couldn't compromise. And as a result of really battling with developers, and I'm sure that everybody that has tried to build something technological who isn't a techie person has learned the hard way that it takes really long to find the right person. You lose lots of money, people aren't ethical, the delays, the project never looks like it's meant to, etc. So this happened to me 4 times outsourcing it. And my boyfriend at the time said, why don't you learn how to do it yourself? And that was liberating. So from June of 2020, I then went on a very steep learning curve of learning how to build the platform myself. And so that made me independent, and I've been able to innovate a lot, not rely on third-party people. I've been able to be cost effective for me. But As I launched and went to market, I discovered that my capabilities had limitations. So some of the innovations that will really propel Good Food Network to be a gold standard platform across the world, I can't do as the only person working in Good Food Network, doing everything else as well. So I very luckily, using my manifesting tools, luckily I'm a manifesting coach, so I get to use all the tools on myself. Within 2 months, I had just attracted the most incredible investor that's answered all of my questions. So we are doing custom innovation and building to the platform, which will take it to the next level. And once we have it working well in South Africa, I'm very confident that we will be able to license it out and have chapters like your Ecocivilisation in South Africa. We'll be able to run Good Food Network all over the world. And I'm very confident that we'll be able to supply a system that can radically transform global food systems where it's needed.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well done. Well done.
Yay.
And so before we open up, to some more further questions, my last kind of like question to you is what paradigm shift do you think we need to make in order for us to really step into and action a sovereign food system?
Eleftheria, I can only talk from my own personal perspective and viewpoint. I think I mentioned to you when we had our pre-interview chat that I've quit social media, so I'm sorry I wasn't able to promote as much as I could have. I did so just over a week ago because I started to feel how intrusive big tech companies have become in my life. They own every minute of my day. They own my relationships. The use of them by me consuming the media that they curate, it has diminished my own creativity. I read and write less. So, and also just the toxic, I noticed that relationships and friendships are degrading. And right now there's a lot of controversy and tension and divisiveness. And I decided to step out from that and reclaim my intellect, reclaim my time, reclaim my relationships, reclaim my creativity. And that's just an invitation that I would like to, I'd like everybody to consider, is when it comes to sovereignty, we are an input. We are a direct product of all of our inputs, our sight, what we hear, what we eat, what we taste, what we touch, what we smell. All of those inputs create our experience of reality. So we need to be super mindful about what those inputs are. And for me, a massive paradigm shift is reconnecting to what makes us human. What makes us human is joy. What makes us human is experiencing nature, the wind on our face. It's moving our bodies. Sitting at a computer screen all day, our lymphatic systems, so our blood pumps our heart pumps our blood through our body, and it pumps nutrients and oxygen to our cells and our organs. But we have a lymphatic system that removes the toxins from our body, which doesn't have a pump. It relies on movement. It relies on us moving to actually detox our bodies. And if we're sitting at computer screens all day, not moving, and we're just collecting toxins. And if we're sitting at our computer screens all day, we're just consuming what's being fed to us. So I would really love a reconnection to everything, to art, culture, to humanity, to not a phobia of being together, to I know that we're living in a pandemic now, but microbes, we have to be exposed to microbes. We can't be germ phobic. The sanitizers that are so widely used are they weaken immune systems. So let's just pretend I was talking before the pandemic, because this is the kind of thing I would say before the pandemic. The antibacterial soaps that get into our waterways destroy aquatic water systems. I would just love us to go back to using our brains, our bodies, our minds, our creativity, and our time independently from the grid and independently from the system. If we could just step out and only use things as tools and not have them use us and turn us into the products, that's the paradigm shift that I would love to see in the world.
Beautiful. So a whole, almost like whole food nourishment as consumption, to just be very conscious of every single level of where we're consuming and what we're consuming, whether it's food, whether it's information, whether it's movement of our bodies, but really a holistic kind of like approach. This is what I'm hearing you say. Yeah?
Absolutely. Just an example, I've taken it to the extreme. So I got really ill, and I didn't get ill in 2014, but my illness, I started to suffer the symptoms of what I'd had lower grades of from my early teens even, but then it just acute, everything came together for an endocrine collapse, hypothyroidism, polycystic ovaries, insulin resistance, digestive disorders, etc. I was very, very ill. And part of that healing process was also becoming very aware of the environment that I live in, and being on busy streets, in traffic, grey buildings, being in an apartment block with lots of Wi-Fi systems all around. We are made up of energy. So it's naive to believe that what goes through the frequencies that go through our airwaves don't affect us. It's very naive. So I have a non-negotiable on where I live needs to feed my soul. And I left the city and I moved to the forest where all I can see are trees. I'm very lucky. A lot of people can't do that. But I just want to stress the importance of curating our worlds, curating our relationships, who the people are, what we eat, what we see, where we go. We can really change so much. People often say that happiness comes from within. And yes, it does. But I also strongly believe that happiness comes from without, because we are so influenced by external factors, and being aware of those external factors and curating them can bring a lot of happiness too.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, there's really powerful invitation that you've given us, and really, really powerful messaging. I'm now just going to open up to those of you that are still with us live. If there's any other questions that you have for Anna, you can either type it in the chat box. Reading a comment here. Thank you, Anna. Such powerful messages.
No pressure, guys.
Any other questions that you may have?
There were one or two things that I also just wanted to say. Just also some of the my observations about we have these two polarities that are going off, complete opposites, and they're kind of spinning. This high tech and innovation, where technology is going to save us and everything technological. And then you've got the opposite movement where people are just trying to rewild and go back to living very natural lives as much as possible. And my take on it is that we now have most of the world's population living in cities. And in those cities, there is very little connection to nature. We go from office blocks into a tube or into public transport, into our homes. We've got regulated climates. We don't see the sky. We don't see the stars. All we see are traffic and other humans and busyness. and we're completely disconnected from nature's rhythms. And in South Africa, we're very lucky because we do have abundant natural resources. So to get outside is a lot easier than it is in a lot of other places. But I strongly believe that all of these tools that people are using to seek connection, social media, all of the addictions, the unhealthy online addictions, yeah, some of them are really, really disturbing, and they're really affecting our youth. We've got gaming that is the biggest industry now in the world. So children are programmed, you know, parents give them smartphones as a form of entertainment because they're so worried that their kids are going to get into danger going outside. Actually, on their smartphone, they're exposed to much more danger that damages more children than an outside world. And in all of this disconnection, I believe that what people are actually looking for is a connection to nature and a reconnection to our natural rhythms and a reconnection to what it feels like to be a natural human. And without having a reference point to what that feels like, I see people creating these technological worlds that remove us further and further and further from our true nature. And in this gross disconnect of our true nature, we are growing more and more disconnected and more unhappy, more and more mental disorders. Yeah, just in that, it perpetuates a cycle of not respecting nature too. So yeah, for me, I would just love to say that human nature and nature would be the biggest antidotes to everything we're experiencing in the world.
I mean, I completely resonate with you there. I truly believe that, you know, the biggest illusion we've bought into is that we are separate from nature. And I think, in fact, it was Zach Bush that read in one of his talks that read the dictionary definition of nature, and it excluded human beings. I mean, the definition of it, you know, which I think is really the core of our issue, really, is that we are one. And the second we let go of that illusion and allow ourselves to really experience and feel and become part of this inextricable, incredible system that we are part of, I think that's when the truth of who we are starts awakening within us. So I completely, you know, resonate with you. There's a question for you here. Yes, from Violetta. How do you protect yourself when you have to enter the poisonous world or eat unhealthy food? That's a good question.
That's a really good question, Violetta. I'm glad that you asked it. On my journey, I felt like it was a life or death circumstance for me. I was so ill that if I didn't make a non-negotiable drastic change, I couldn't see myself surviving many more years. I felt like I was on the brink of developing cancer, whether that was psychological or not. So yes, it's very difficult. I think it's very difficult to protect yourself when you have to, you know, we live in a world of toxins. We live in toxin soup. The air that we breathe is polluted. The water that we consume has chemicals, and the food that we eat is highly sprayed. There are little things that we can start doing more and more. So buy a home water filter system, the best that you can afford, not plastic water bottles that perpetuate global water monopolies and create so much plastic waste. So filtering our water, our bodies are 70% water. If we just drink water that has been filtered from heavy metals and toxins, we can already impact our bodies greatly. Then don't forget about breath. So the way that the body detoxes, our biggest detoxing mechanism is actually through our breath. And in our modern world, where we are always we're so stressed that just being late or just getting into traffic brings up fight or flight responses. It stimulates cortisol, which creates, which is a precursor to all kinds of immune diseases as well. Brings out hormonal imbalances, and we hold our breath. And So becoming aware of our breath, and it's taken me probably 4 years to relearn how to breathe, because just being so stressed from modern life, I would find that I was holding my breath all the time and not taking deep breaths. But a really beautiful practice that is becoming popular, and people can Google it. Wim Hof is great with breathing exercises, but there are a lot of YouTube videos. I would strongly encourage people to make a daily practice of breath pranayama, or whatever you can find on the internet, even a 15-minute practice. If you can't do it every day, do it once a week. Do a meditation with breath work. That will really help you detox your body. I also strongly advocate going to find a tree. If you live in a city and there's a beautiful big tree somewhere, take your shoes off, especially if you live in apartment blocks and you don't ever earth on the ground. This sounds very hippie, but there's an exchange there's an ionic exchange that happens with our body and the earth. That's why we have in plugs, there's an earthing, one of the wires is to earth. It's actually an electronic exchange that happens. Take your shoes off and go and sit under a tree. Trees, and when I was very sick, I actually used to crave this because my electromagnetic frequency of my body was disturbed. And trees, everything, all matter has an electromagnetic frequency. And an electromagnetic field. And the electromagnetic field of trees actually has a heartbeat, a very slow one, but it can really help to sync the rhythm of our own heartbeat to more of a similar frequency to that of the earth. So that's a very hippie thing, but there's a whole scientific study around rewilding and going into forests and forest bathing. And that would be a very amplified version of what I'm sharing with you now. But if you live in a city and you can just find one tree, go and spend half an hour lying under that tree with your shoes off and just earth and breathe and get your electromagnetic frequency. You don't need to do anything. You can just lie there. And as much as possible, buy organic food. Please buy organic food from a local supplier. Go out of your way to find a small supplier. Go out of your way to join a box scheme. There's a wonderful movement that is started all over the world called community supported agriculture. And what that does is you can actually invest in your local farmer or in your local co-op before you get the products. So you help them with the financial input that they need to produce your food, so that the risk is spread, and then you get the rewards of this vital food and probably at a reduced cost. So you're almost coming in as a business partner. But if people can look up community supported agriculture and try and find local outlets, a lot of the time there are amazing, I know in Europe, there are amazing urban farms and rooftop farms that are starting everywhere. Try and avoid convenience. Convenience often comes at a cost. And there is so much joy when you connect to an individual, or when you go through a different routine or process to do something that nourishes and invests in yourself. You actually get a lot of joy from whatever that routine is. So I hope that those help.
Thank you. Yes, that was some amazing advice and some wonderful action steps that we can take towards co-creating this sovereign world, which actually all of our hearts are desperately seeking and wanting to create. Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. The last thing that I'd just love to share, Eleftheria, with wellness. I know that we've been talking about food, but with wellness, what I have come to discover, that doing what you're passionate about, doing the things that make you passionate, are intrinsically linked to not only our mental health, but our physical health. So if we are feeling trapped, if we are doing things that we hate, or just in toxic situations, it starts to manifest physically. Even if it can manifest as a posture where you become insecure or hunched over. Just by hunching over and changing your posture, you reduce how much breath you're taking in, which can affect your overall vitality. And so much unhappiness, I think, comes from social pressures, not only from social media, but social pressures of what we need to do and be. And I think if people can really try and understand what makes them happy and try and pursue, if not a career path, but at least then a hobby path of getting involved in what makes them happy, the physical health benefits from that you can't top. So
again, another beautiful gem. Thank you. Absolutely. You know, I think I can fully agree. I think a big part of especially mental health challenges that we're experiencing worldwide is a loss of meaning. And so I think when you can discover that passion or that purpose or something that gives you beautiful joy, or, you know, and you'll know your heart will just start singing, you know, when we actually take the time to practice that, it's amazing how fulfilling it becomes and is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Any other questions for us today? We'll just see if there's more. Natasha has shared all of your wonderful resources that you've given us. She's also shared the Earthing the movie, which is a great movie to have as well, and grounding. It's amazing how, you know, I think about this, you know, as children, we're so comfortable running around barefoot, and that at some point our feet become so sensitive because of, you know, shoes we wear, that we stop doing that, or maybe life or, you know, office. And then there's a part of just rediscovering the beautiful texture and how good you feel when you're just, you know, walking barefoot. Well, maybe not for people in Slovenia in the snow. Maybe that could be good too. But just feeling the textures, and really actually that grounding is such an important thing for us to do.
I see there from, is it John? That's
yes.
from Michelle, just saying
yeah.
Thank you, and getting for the barefoot and getting hands dirty to connect with life in the soil. I'm sure that John probably knows this, but there have been many studies done on the serotonin. There are microbes in the soil that actually, when they connect, when we connect with them and we work with them, they release serotonin. So urban farming and farming is often used now in psychiatric wards and mental hospitals because of the mental wellness that it stimulates, not just through the practice, but actually physiologically with the serotonin releasing microbes.
Yeah. Again, that incredible symbiotic relationship that we have, you know, good soil, good nourishing, you know, nutrition rich soil, good for us, good for the earth, good for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Well, I just would love to thank you, Eleftheria, because I met you at the very beginning of my journey. Like you said, when Good Food Networks was just a seed. And I didn't realize that you'd observed the last few years of everything actually manifesting. And it's just been a really wonderful reconnection with you, taking me back along that journey. And I just feel so grateful that, you know, energetically, you've been such an incredible support. And yeah, it's wonderful to reconnect with you now. And I also would just love to tell everybody that's still with us the incredible work that Eleftheria does in permaculture and creating the most fantastical natural food and biodiverse ecosystems. I've never seen anything like it. So if those of you who know Eleftheria haven't seen some of her work, you really, really need to.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, it's been beautiful to reconnect with you as well. And I must say, Barry does all the work. Barry does the incredible designing, and he's got the green fingers. Yes, yeah. But together, it's amazing to live like that in symbiosis with nature. It's amazing. Yeah.
You just, I've got one last parting thought, which has reminded me because of permaculture, which you observe natural systems and then you create your own human design system to work in the flow of nature's systems already, so that whatever you create is amplified by nature's systems. And I would just, in also one of the previous comments in a paradigm shift, if we can incorporate more of nature's systems, and if we can, like with biomimicry and design taken from nature and nature-based designs, and if we can just start looking at nature for the source of our design innovation, I think that we will progress significantly as a civilization.
Again, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly, for sure, for sure. All the wisdom is in nature. Violeta has put up her hand. Violeta, please go ahead.
Hey, yeah, Anna and Eleftheria, thank you very much for this incredible talk, speech, share of experiences, really heartfelt experiences. I do hope that the nature has amplified this session a lot, and we've touched many hearts, also those that are with us only on a frequency of love. And I'm really looking forward to co-create something beautiful in the future as well. So thanks again for this great evening. And sorry I couldn't be fully present, but sometimes technology is just a little bit of a challenge. So, but at least mobile works. So thank you very much, really, indeed, from the bottom of my heart as well.
I'm absolutely delighted and honored to have connected with you, Violeta. Thank you very, very much. I'm sure it's the beginning of beautiful things to come and collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, Violeta. Wonderful. You know, we could just carry on for hours and hours, but I think that kind of like closes off our time together for now. And Anna, I just want to really, really thank you for a beautiful presentation, for opening us up, for sharing some of the heartbreaking realities of our world, but also giving us a way forward, giving us some action steps that we can take, and encouraging us to really just connect locally and to reconnect with the source of our food, the source of life, and the source of nature. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you for everybody joining and for everybody listening in the replay as well. Wishing you all a beautiful season. Yes, we'll connect again in the next Ecocivilization discussion.